Hello and welcome to Quartzlight, your car brochure channel. In today's episode, the Austin Maestro. Hello and welcome back. If you're new to the show, here at Quartzlight, we look at car brochures from around the world here on YouTube for the 60s, 70s, 80s and 90s and sometimes beyond. So if you're a car enthusiast, or indeed just into car brochures, then we'd be happy to have you and would really appreciate it if you subscribe. We are slowly growing. Now, in today's episode, we're going to continue with the Austin Rover series. We've already looked at the Mini, we've already looked at the Austin Metro, so now it's the turn of the Austin Maestro. And it's quite a large range, so we better get on with that now. So here it is, the Austin Maestro, although the first page is actually showing the MG Maestro, born to perform miracles. A few miracles were needed, really, weren't they, at Austin Rover, unfortunately. Miracles didn't happen, but here it is. And like I said, MG as well, so we're looking at the Austin Maestro and the MG Maestro, although only the 1600 available at this time. This is 1983, so the Austin Maestro ran from 1982 to 86 under British Leyland, and then from 86 to 94 under the Rover group, although they never called it the Rover Maestro, did they? But never mind. So the MG version ran from 83 to 91, so this is just when the MG Maestro arrived. First year Maestros had a lot of issues, but we'll talk about them later on. Here, kind of like to replace, what would you say? Certainly to replace the Allegro, maybe the Maxi and the Allegro, maybe two cars. And actually this is before the days of the Austin Montego as well. This is not arrived in this brochure yet. That was 84, so just the Maestro. And this is the newest vehicle in this brochure, really, because this is, particularly the MG's just arrived at this time. Enough waffle, let's turn the first page and let's see which model trim level comes first. And here it is, the Austin Maestro 1.3, 1.3L and 1.6L base model. Loveliness. We'll certainly have a look at some of these images, some of this text. I don't know if we'll get time to look at it all because, we're going to be pushed for time a little bit, but let's zoom in on these images. Are the first images showing this 1.6L in the foreground here in this sort of businessy scene. I always quite liked, I don't know about you, but I always quite liked the Maestro styling. I think it was a nice looking car overall, and of course hatchbacks at this time is really what you wanted, so a very practical hatchback. If we can tune into this back one, there we go. Like I say, a very practical hatchback. This low cutout to the bumper, so you don't have much to lift your shopping in there, so a very practical vehicle overall. And I always liked the design. I know not everyone does, but I always liked it. Very reminiscent of those tiny little reversing lights. Remember them reversing lights? Tiny little things, often criticised, but I quite like those little tiny reversing lights. I think they look quite stylish, and after all, even a big reversing light, how much light does it shine when you're reversing anyway? But yeah, overall I like the styling of the Maestro. Down the bottom here is the interior, the seats of the 1.38, 1.6L. Headrests, some we get headrests. However, if we move over to the next page, this is the 1.3, not even an L. No head restraints on this. Bit of a cheaper trim, cheaper seat material. You can see the doored cards are cheaper, showing the metal at the top there. So yeah, overall much nicer if you got the L, and I'm sure most people would step up to the L to get that nicer trim. However, here on Quartzlight, I don't know why, I've got a little bit of a thing for base level models, because you can see they've almost tried to make a base model. They've kind of like gone out of their way to make them a bit cheaper, how much money did they actually save? I'm not entirely sure, but like I say, most people would have stepped up to that L for a few $100, sorry, a few £100 I should say, a few £100 more for the L, wouldn't they, when they saw that interior, so making that base model a little bit rarer. Radio aerial 1.3L, 1.6L, maybe that's telling us the base model didn't even have an aerial. Split rear seat, as you can see, again showing the L models rear seats. Rear wash wipe on the L, front door bins L. Maybe this is a bit of a key that none of the base model, not even an L, probably never even got any of that. And then what have we got? We got the fascia and the radio. So yeah, it looks like you get a radio on the L model there. No rev counter. Very plain interior. I quite like that steering wheel though. I don't know why. I quite like it. And then finally, it gives us a very blurry, not very good sunshine image of the 1.3, not even an L. You can see no rubbing strips down the side. Looks like we don't even get a passenger door mirror either on there. So, very base model. Kind of like reminds me of, when they did the van versions, particularly when I see them in white. Time to read the whole thing, but it's telling us here a little bit of details about the Maestro. It also tells you, the value, money price leading Maestro 1.3 that you can get. Of course, you can read all this by pausing the screen if you really want to. It then talks about the engine, there's 1.3 litre, 68 bhp, performing up to 97 miles per hour, and also showing, good fuel economy, 50.8 at 56, so, very good indeed. Telling us that these bumpers can resist 2.5 miles per hour parking bumps, which doesn't sound very high really. And then it talks about the L specification, gaining things like this 60-40 split seats, rear parcel shelf, push button radio, cigar lighter, stepless reclining front seats and head restraints, and several other extra amenities, etc, etc. And that's why I kind of like the base model. You kind of go out the way not to put anything on them at all. Particularly this time, if you had a base model, you really were, pointed at really when you buy British Lane. You really bought the base model on there, haven't you? But good for like fleet sales, I guess. I don't know how many private sellers would have gone for that. Not even an L. It then goes on to tell us about the 1.6 having an 81 bhp engine, and it's also telling us there is some differences over the 1.6 and the 1.3 by the looks of it. And it's talking about your optional extras. So that very basic 1.3, you can kind of like add things like rear wash wipe, rear parcel shelf, etc. Don't know what the point of that is. You might as well go for the L, I think, and particularly in trading value, you're always better going for a trim level rather than adding features on. And then finally, there are the fuel economy figures between the 1.3, 1.3L and 1.6L. You can notice the L model getting a little bit better fuel economy, at least at 56 miles per hour. Then we get to the HLE, in this case a 1.3 HLE. E at this time, like with the Metro, E was really there for economy, although HL obviously a higher equipment than your L model, of course. We will look at some of these images, some of these extra features, and a little bit of this text. So first of all, there's a green example. It's kind of like my favourite colour at this time, this opaline green metallic. Great range of colours really, and we will have a look at the colour range later on. But certainly it looks the part in this particular colour. Again, not showing passenger door mirrors at this stage. Interior now, a few more extra gauges, still no rev counter. We get a nice little clock and we get this sort of like gauge. I think this is like the economy thing you get with the E model, the economy gauge. And I think some of the pictures show some of these features a little bit better, but as you can still wind down windows. Tweed cloth seats with head restraints on the HLE. There is a little bit of a better look at that economy gauge for the HLE, and that sort of fourth gear that's got a E on it for economy instead. It's called the 3 Plus E transmission. It's just kind of like showing the gear lever and the illuminated ashtray. Internally adjustable driver's mirrors, how fancy. This is kind of like what I do particularly like on these. I did always quite like these sorts of like rear treatments. They call them the aerodynamic rear strakes. Kind of like suits the car. Very much like the Metro, the higher spec Metro had something going around here. I quite like that. It does suit the car, and a closer look at those peculiar rear lights with them very, very tiny reversing lights, but I think they look quite stylish like that. Not giving that much light off, I guess, would be the criticism. So I'm not going to read all this, but key points here really are that at 56 miles per hour you gain 60.5 miles per gallon. So, you know, a bit more economy. Talked about that 3 Plus E gearbox, in which the third gear operates as a normal top speed, and the fourth, or E ratio, is a long-legged overdrive for a bit more fuel economy. Never drove one compared to the standard gearbox, so I don't know how that felt with that long-legged fourth gear on the end. I'm not going to read this, but like I say, you can always pause the screen if you do want to read the full text. And then at the bottom there, it's talking about the optional extras you can get, things like slide and tilt sunroof, etc, etc. And finally there is the possible fantastic fuel economy figures for having this E model. Now we go up a model from the HLE to the HLS, 1.6s, and there is an automatic option as well. So let's have a look at some of these images on a higher spec model. So the top one, again, one of my favourite colours at this time. I think it reminds me of this era so much, this metallic blue. I think it's zircon blue metallic, but like I said, we'll look at the colours later on. Looks like we get some kind of alloy wheel. Are the alloy wheels? We'll have to check later on. We get these nice chrome door handles though, very nice. A nice front grille, all looking a little bit fancy, a little bit posh now. 5-speed box now. Kind of like wonder how, you know, how it feels having the 5-speed box towards that economy one. I think I would have rather had the normal 5-speed box personally. HLS interior looking like a nicer place to be with this colour coordinating blue interior in this case. And of course there is that auto option with Maestro on the top if you forgot what car you're driving. Some passenger door mirror. Oh, we get a passenger door mirror. There we go. You have to step up to the HLS to get that. Nice little armrest. I don't know why armrests always became something you put in higher spec models. Always seemed a bit peculiar. We do get a rev counter. We know we're in something a little bit more sporty now. Maestro badging at the rear, and you can see how the 1.6 and the automatic if you option for the automatic. And another look at that interior. You can see that sort of blanking plate where that economy meter used to be. So here we have the text. Like I said, I'm not going to go through it all, but it's kind of like pointing out things like at a constant 56, this is again 53.1, so we're not getting as much as that economy model, but I presume a little bit more performance here. So we're going accelerate to 60 in 11 seconds, top speed of 103, which, you know, not too bad for the times really. Goes on to tell us it's a superb all-rounder, and then it starts talking about that 1.6 automatic model. It tells us, you know, it's similar to other models, but we do get 2 door mirrors now, bright finish fairings and interior remote control. It's not mentioning alloy wheels, so I think sadly they must be steel wheels with a little bit of a plastic cap in the middle. So performance wise, what do we get? Well, it tells us this is clever, isn't it? Accelerate to 50 in 9.6 seconds. It sounds way better when you say 0 to 50. That's a bit sneaky, isn't it? I want to know the 0 to 60 time, not the 0 to 50, but sounds good at 9.6. Top speed of 100. Fuel economy, he's suffering, and we'll look at the fuel economy at the end there. It goes on to tell us the same auto is optional on the Van der Pla. Few optional extras you can get on there, things like that sunroof, radio, stereo, cassette. Oh, special options, however, are the futuristic alloy wheels unique to Maestro. You can also get electric front windows, bronze tinted glass, and central locking. And they are the fuel economy figures. We can kind of like see there that the automatic suffers a little bit. Here is the Maestro, sorry, the MG Maestro 1600. Yeah, 1600 at this time. And this would have been the R series engine, and this only ran from 83 to 84. They had a few issues with it, and it kind of was like rushed into production, even though the engineer says, no, we're not ready. He insisted it went into production in 83. And it was underdeveloped, there's no doubt about it. So that 1.6 R series engine ran rough from the start, difficult starting problems. But more importantly, in 84 we got the lovely 2-litre EFI, which was a much improvement, and I kind of think that was the model to get. Of course, there was the turbo version as well, which was really the car to get. That was quite an exciting fast car, but that didn't come out till 89. But this is back to the brochure. This is the beginnings of the MG Maestro. Like I say, a difficult start for it, but I think they look wonderful. I do love them. I love the interiors. I really like this futuristic looking digital display, even though the analog ones were way better, to be honest with you. But how futuristic does it look? I think they also got that little, you know, voice as well, little voice synthesizer type thing that, you know, told you of faults and things and didn't work that well. But I think the MG had it, and the Van der Pla maybe. Answers in the comments. I'm kind of like just making that up maybe, but I love the design of the MG. I love the seats. So let's have a look at some of these images. So yeah, like at this time, often in Fords and Austin Rovers products, you got like a red line indicating it was a bit sporty. So there you go, MG badges. Love the wheels, so 80s, aren't they? I really like them wheels. And of course we've got a passenger and a driver's door mirror. You can just about make out the red seat belt. But overall, I think what a wonderful car. You know, this sort of like hot hatch or early hot hatch era, I think it was just an amazing time. On the back, we also get the rear spoiler, which is joined these strakes, which I think look really good. Lower down, we get this sort of very basic. It says, oh yeah, there we go. We zoom in a bit better, you may be able to see. Oh, finally, there we go. Yeah, like I say, this very basic computer, but you can see computer and voice synthesis. How futuristic that was at this time in the 80s. Like I say, it didn't work that well, but let's not talk too much about that. I think, you know, how futuristic, you know, the brave new world. MG badges. The 103 bhp twin carburetor power unit. These lovely sports seats with the red trim and the red seat belt. I do like that. It really livens up the MG interior. Anyway, let's have a look at some of the text. So once again, I'll leave it up there if you do want to pause the screen, but basically it's telling us it's got 14-inch alloy wheels on this Maestro, or MG Maestro 1600, I should say. So under the bonnet there's a specially developed 103 bhp version of the R Series 1600 with super efficient breathing via 2 twin choke carburetors, 1 choke per cylinder. Like I say, kind of like rushed in there, so it wasn't that good. So we got a special close ratio 5-speed gearbox now, 0 to 60 in 9.6 seconds, which is respectable. 110, 111 top speed, not bad at all. But I think more than the speed and the performance, I think these were more about the looks of the thing, and I think they look really good. You kind of had to wait for the 2 litre to get a bit more performance, and then wait still further to get that turbo model, which was like blisteringly quick for the time. But it's telling us we can still get 47.5 miles per gallon, which isn't too bad. Optional extras: tilt and slide sunroof, electric front windows, stereo radio cassette, tinted glass, central door locking. They are the fuel economy figures. Not too bad if you drove it sensibly. So here it is, the top of the range model at the time, the Vanden Plas, the car you always aspired to own. We'll zoom in on some of these images and some of this text. So more sort of bright work, particularly remember these door mirrors, this sort of like chrome or pretend chrome or whatever it is, bright work on the mirrors, really making it look like something a bit fancy. Sadly not alloy wheels, these were just wheel caps that looked a little bit different than the rest. Interior wise, typical sort of Vanden Plas treatment. We get a bit of wood, although it's quite nice, quite a big piece of wood actually on the Maestro. Although I always kind of like think it's kind of a bit weird, that sort of wood mix with a Maestro, this new model, this futuristic model. But there we go. Sort of nicer head restraints with a bit more comfort if you did want to lean your head back onto those. Interior wise, we've got this electronic computer seen here with that sort of voice machine, whatever you want to call it. Like I say, in the place of where that E version's econometer was. At the top here we've got the sunroof, a steel sunroof, internally adjustable mirrors, and we can see that wood, and like I say, it's quite a nice colour, isn't it? It's not a bad looking wood actually. Electric windows, we got those chrome or pretend chrome door mirrors and central door locking. And on the door we've got something called a Rochelle door trim with a carpeted kick strip. There we go. So all the fancities of your Vanden Plas. So similar thing with the text. If you do want to pause the screen and read it all, you can do. It tells us this is the flagship of the Maestro range, and you know, you kind of like think this would come after the HLS and then the MG at the end, but they always like to put the Vanden Plas at the end, even though it didn't have things like alloy wheels, which the MG one had, which I always think it should have come with alloy wheels. I don't know about you. Okay, so telling us the VP motif and special wheel covers, however much you make of that. A bit more information about all the fancities. We get things like tilt slide sunroof now, we get a radio stereo cassette now, we get electric windows now, we get central door locking now. It says it likens it to a compact limousine, which I think is pushing it a little bit. 1.6 engine, 81 bhp, 5-speed gearbox, 52.5 miles per gallon at a constant 56. So what optional extras do you get for the Vanden Plas? You can have it as an automatic if you want, and the other options is obviously your colour options, and you can have attractive alloy wheels, which I think it should have had anyway. and they are the fuel economy figures for the manual and the auto. This is the specification page now. I'm just really going to go through this without taking too much time, but again, if you want to pause the screen, you can do. It starts off with those base models. Tells you the wheels and tyre choices for them base models, as well as the electrical. If I can pause that, get that camera to keep still for one moment. The instrumentation and the interior features for those base models. Let's see if I can get it all in one shot. There's quite a lot of words there for the interior features. There we go. Hope that's not too small for you if you really do want to read it all on pause. And then finally the body features for those 1.3s, 1.3L, 1.6L. They are all the features of the HLE. So basically it's a 1.3L with the following variations. And then this is the HLS, which is the 1.6L with the following variations. Main thing really is that 5-speed gearbox, I think. And the automatic option, which is the same as a HLS with the following variations. And then we get the MG Maestro 1600, which is apparently the same as a 1.6 HLS with the following variations, although there is quite a lot of variations, you know, cast alloy wheels, close ratio 5-speed box. These are the differences with the instrumentations on that MG model. And whoops, sorry about that. These are the interior features that differ for the MG model. Of additional body features for the MG version. And then finally we have the flagship, the Vanden Plough, which is the same as the 1.6 HLS with the following variations. Still wheel covers, but a full diameter wheel cover. Electrical, instrumentation, interior features, and then finally the different body features. Interesting, your body coloured bumpers. You know, this was like at the start, really, wasn't it, of body coloured bumpers coming in. And then for next week's episode, what a contrast, really. The Morris Ital, kind of like going from like the new models to one of the still hanging in there models. Remember, the Maestro hasn't arrived yet, so you know, very strange range at this time, but I do like the range at this time. It's so varied. Okay, exterior colours now, and it really had a fabulous range for the Maestro. Actually, I think there was only 3 colours in these full colour chart that you couldn't get for your Maestro. So you could get Aran White, which could have been an MG colour as well. You could get Black, which was also an MG colour. Rattan Beige, you know, you just picture the base models in that beige colour, really, couldn't you? Silver Leaf Metallic, yes, and it was a MG colour as well. Cinnabar Red was not a Maestro colour, actually. Cashmere Gold was, Monza Red was, and Monza Red could be an MG colour as well. You could even have a Porto Red. Primary Yellow wasn't, although I think, you know, it would quite suit it actually in Premier Yellow, but you couldn't get Premier Yellow. You could get the Opaline Green Metallic, which was also an MG colour, and the Zircon Blue Metallic, which was also an MG colour. Like I said, they're my 2 favourites, I think, for this time. You could get Clove Brown to really make your Maestro looked like a 70s car if you wanted. You could even get Eclipse Blue, I do believe, which was quite a nice dark blue colour. You couldn't get Moonraker Blue Metallic though, that was a big Rover colour, like the Rover SD1 colour. So there we go, there is the Austin Maestro and the MG Maestro. I really like these cars. I know a lot of people hated them, but love it or hate it, please comment about your experiences with these cars in the 80s. Thank you so much for watching Course Like today. Many more brochure review videos coming up very soon, so please do like and subscribe. We'll see you very soon. Take care and goodbye.